day, everybody. My name is Carla Obispo, and I'm going to continue the reporting of the second part of creating and managing teams. In this topic, I'm going to discuss turning teams into effective teams. Under that, we're going to talk about the difference between groups and teams, the types of work teams, and creating effective work teams. Look at these companies, W.L. Gore, Volvo, Kraft Foods. When they introduced teams in 1970s, it made news. Why? Because it was common before to have groups. Okay. Now, 80% of Fortune 500 companies have at least half of their employees on teams. 83% of respondents in a Center for Creative Leadership study says that teams are a key ingredient to organizational success. So with that said, without a doubt, team-based work is a core feature of today's organization. And of course, teams are likely to continue to be popular in the future. According to research, teams typically outperform individuals when the tasks being done require multiple skills, judgment, and experience. Organizations are using team-based structures because they found out that teams are more flexible and responsive to changing events than traditional departments or other permanent work groups. Teams have the ability to quickly assemble, deploy, refocus, and disband. So those are the reasons why companies are now adapting teams. Now, what is the difference between work group and work teams? In other work teams, the leadership role is shared. Unlike in work groups, we only have one leader. We have the manager. Okay? In work teams, everybody is accountable to self and the team. Unlike in groups, you're only accountable to yourself. Once you've done your part, you're done. Okay? Now, you need to check your teammates in work teams. Another is team creates specific purpose. Okay? They are made to have one goal. Unlike in groups, it's the purpose is the same as broader organizational purpose. Okay, so what I want you to know, or what I want to emphasize, is that in teams, the work is done collectively, not individually. The meetings are characterized by open-ended discussion and collaborative problem solving. Everybody can give suggestions, unlike in work groups where the leader is the one being followed. Okay? In work teams, the performance is measured directly by evaluating collective work output. It's not done individually, it's not done indirectly. Okay? The work decided upon and done together. Okay, so um, in work groups, they delegate the work. But in work teams, everybody does the work. Okay, they work together. Okay, again, work teams can be quickly assembled, deployed, refocused, and disbanded. There are different types of work teams. We have problem-solving teams, self-managed work team, cross-functional team, and virtual team. So what is this problem-solving team? Teams from the same department or functional area involved in efforts to improve work activities or to solve specific problems. Okay, so here, members share ideas and offer suggestions on how to work, on how work processes and methods can be improved. However, these teams are rarely given the authority to implement any of the suggested actions. So basically, like for example, there was a large Midwest University in US, and they assembled a team of faculty members to study how to increase faculty retention. Okay, so the team worked together and completed a variety of activities. They have interviews and with the current and former faculty members, and then the members prepared a report for the university's provost in which they discussed their findings and recommendations. So after they discussed their findings and recommendations, the decision is still whether to implement them is still rested with the provost and not with the committee. So meaning they just make suggestions and recommendations, but they cannot implement them on their own. Okay. Moving on to self-managed work team. Okay. These teams are a formal group of employees who operate without a manager and are responsible for a complete work process or a segment. So a self-managed team is responsible for getting the work done and managing themselves. Okay, so there's no manager at all. Okay, usually this includes planning, scheduling of work, assigning tasks to members, collective control over the pace of work, making operating decisions, and taking actions on problems. So what's an example? Look at these companies, Xerox, Corning, HP. Okay, so this one, they have no shift supervisors, and they work closely with other manufacturing divisions to solve production line problems and coordinate deadlines and deliveries. Okay, the teams here have the authority to make and implement decisions, finish projects, and address projects. Okay, so these examples of organizations are self-managed teams, and they find them to be effective. Okay. Next is the cross-functional. So this is defined as work team composed of individuals from various functional specialties. Okay, many organizations use cross-functional teams. Like for example, this brand of car. Okay. So General Motors uses cross-functional teams of sculptors, system analysts, engineers, and creative designers to come up with innovative cars. Okay. So the concept of cross-functional teams is even applied in healthcare. Like for example, in a suburban hospital in Maryland, there's an ICU team composed of a doctor trained in intensive care medicine, a pharmacist, a social worker, a nutritionist, and the chief of ICU nurse, respiratory therapist, and chaplain that meets daily with every patient bedside nurse to discuss and debate the best course of treatment. So even though they have different functions, they work as a team. Okay, so this one, in that example, the hospital credits the team because it reduces errors, shortens the amount of time patients spend in the ICU, and improves communication between the families and the medical staff. So, a cross-functional team is effective when the members have different specialties and they work as one. They have a specific purpose. Now, the last one is virtual team. This is a team that uses technology to link physically dispersed members to achieve a common goal. Okay, so meaning, okay, for example, a virtual team at Rocketdyne played a pivotal role in developing a radically new product. Another company, Automatic, they have 450 individuals distributed throughout 45 countries Okay, so meaning it's difficult for them to meet because their team members are dispersed. Okay, so this is a truly virtual company because there's no physical office space. Okay, how does it work? In a virtual team, members collaborate online with tools like wide area networks, we call that one, video conferencing, fax, email, or websites where the team can hold online conferences. Virtual teams can do all things that other teams can. They can share information, make decisions, complete tasks. However, they lack the normal give and take of face-to-face discussion. Okay? That's why virtual teams tend to be more task-oriented, especially if the team members have never met in person. Okay? This is actually like my case. I'm working in the Philippines, but my bosses are located in the US. So we're like a virtual team because whenever I have concerns, I just email them or we have video conferencing to discuss matters. Okay. Now, okay, let's talk about creating effective work teams. Okay, there are different characteristics to describe an effective work team. Okay. One of them is clear goals. So you must have a clear goal. High performance teams have a clear understanding of the goal to be achieved. Members are committed to the team goals. They know what they are expected to accomplish and understand how they will work together to achieve these goals. Okay, so uh, if you belong to a team, make sure that you have one clear goal. You can have a lot of goals, but make sure it's clear. Okay. Number two is the relevant skills. Effective teams are composed of competent individuals who have the necessary technical and interpersonal skills to achieve their desired goal. Okay. So this last point is important because not everyone who is technically incompetent has the interpersonal skill to work well as a team. Okay, so you need to have this relevant skills. Okay, I mean, even if you're very good technically, if you cannot communicate well with the other members of the team, it won't be effective. Okay, next is mutual trust. Effective teams are characterized by high mutual trust among members, meaning the members must believe in each other's ability, character, and integrity. Okay? So, trust is really fragile. Okay? Maintaining this trust requires careful attention by the managers. Okay? Next is unified commitment. Unified commitment is characterized by dedication to the team's goals and a willingness to expand extraordinary amounts of energy to achieve them. Okay? Members of an effective team exhibit intense loyalty and dedication to the team and are willing to do whatever it takes to help their team succeed. Okay? So meaning everybody must be dedicated. Okay? Next is good communication. Okay? Members convey messages verbally and non-verbally between each other in ways that are readily and clearly understood. Okay, so feedback helps in guiding the team members and correcting misunderstandings. It's like a couple who has been together for many years. Members of high-performing teams are able to quickly and efficiently share ideas and their feelings. Next is negotiating skills. Effective teams are continually making adjustments to who does what, okay? This flexibility requires team members to possess negotiating skills because problems and relationships regularly change within teams. Members need to be able to confront and reconcile their differences. Okay. Next, but not the list, okay, is appropriate leadership. Okay? Effective leaders are important. Okay? They can motivate a team to follow them through the most difficult decisions or situations. Okay? They need to clarify goals, demonstrate that the change is possible by overcoming inertia, and increase self-confidence of team members. Okay? They need to help members to more fully realize their potential. Increasingly, effective team members act as coaches and facilitators. Okay? They are not just the leaders. Okay? They help and guide and support the team, but they do not control it. Okay? So, according to studies, when a team leader emotionally displays positive and negative emotions, okay, the team functions and performance can be enhanced. Okay? Lastly, effective work teams need internal and external support. The final condition necessary for an effective team is a supportive climate. Internally, the team should have a sound infrastructure. This means that they must have a proper training, a clear and reasonable measurement system that team members can use to evaluate their overall performance, and an incentive program that recognizes and rewards team members, and a supportive human resource system. Okay, the right infrastructure should support members and reinforce behaviors that lead to high levels of performance. So what about this one? External supports. In managers should provide the team with resources they need to get the job done, not just instructions. They must, like our teacher. Okay, our teacher provides us a lot of things to do. However, he also provides materials or source materials that are needed to get our job done. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now, okay, let's move on to the current challenges in managing teams. Okay, we're going to discuss managing global teams, building team skills, understanding social networks. Okay, so in managing global teams, okay, there are two characteristics of today's organization. Okay, they are global and they work increasingly done by teams. Okay, so the work is done by teams. So these two aspects mean that any manager is likely to have to manage a global team. Okay, so what do we know about managing a global team? So let's use this framework to talk about the issues associated with global teams. Number one, group member resources in global teams. So in many global organizations, understanding the relationship between performance and group members' resources is very challenging because we have unique cultural characteristics represented by the members of the global team. So if people are from different countries, we have different culture, right? Okay. Um, in addition to recognizing team members' abilities and skills, knowledge, and personality, the managers need to be familiar with and clearly understand the cultural characteristics of groups and the group members they manage. Okay, for example, is the global team from a culture in which uncertainty avoidance is high? If so, members will not be comfortable dealing with unpredictable and ambiguous tasks. Also, as managers work with global teams, they need to be aware of the potential for stereotyping, which can lead to problems. Like for example, if you're watching Netflix, they have Emily in Paris. She's very shocked when she moved from Chicago to France or to Paris because they have a different culture. Okay, so it's very important that you study the culture of each people, I mean, the members of the team, so that you know how to approach them. Next is the group structure. Some of the structural areas where we see differences in managing global teams include conformity, status, social loafing, and cohesiveness. Okay, so what do we need to ask ourselves? Okay, are conformity findings generalizable across cultures? Like, for example, there's a research that um, about culture bound. Okay, conformity to social norms tends to be higher in collectivist or collectivistic cultures than in individualistic cultures. Okay, despite this tendency, groupthink tends to be less of a problem in a global teams because members are less likely to feel pressure to conform to ideas and conclusions and decisions of the group. Okay? The importance of status varies between cultures. Okay? For example, the French are extremely status conscious. Countries differ on criteria that confer status. In Latin America and Asia, status tends to come from the family position for like formal roles held by organizations. In contrast, in US and Australia, it tends to be less in your face. I mean, it tends to be given based on your accomplishment rather than your titles or your family history. It tends to be given based on your achievement. Okay? Managers must understand who and what holds status when interacting with people from a culture different from their own. And American manager who does not understand that office size isn't a measure of Japanese executives' position or who fails to grasp the importance of British place on family and social class is likely to unintentionally offend others. Okay? So you need to understand the group structure in each country. Okay? So in addition to the group structure, social loafing has a Western bias, meaning it's consistent with individualistic culture like US and Canada. They are dominated by self-interest. It's not consistent with collectivistic societies in which individuals are motivated by group goals. For example, in US, okay, the employees from People's Republic of China and Israel and the Chinese and Israelis showed no propensity to engage in social loafing. Okay, they actually performed better in a group rather than working alone. Okay, so cohesiveness is another group structural element where managers can face special challenges in a cohesive group. Members are unified and they act as one. Okay, these groups exhibit a great deal of camaraderie and group identity is high. In global teams, when we talk about that, cohesiveness is often more difficult to achieve because there's a higher level of mistrust, miscommunication, and stress. Okay, it's really hard to trust people if you do not meet them in person, right? Now, how about group processes? The processes global team use to do their work can be particularly challenging for managers. Why? For one thing, communication issues often arise because not all team members may be fluent in a team's working language. Okay, it's a barrier, right? This can lead to inaccuracies, misunderstandings, and inefficiencies. However, research also shown that multicultural global team is better to capitalize on diversity of ideas and represent a wide range of information. Like for example, when I work in Korea, I'm the only foreigner in the team. So it's most of the meetings are quite difficult for me because they are using Hangul, they are using Korean language. And because I'm the only foreigner, I have to adjust and study that so that I can understand what they want to use or what they want to do. Okay. In group processes, managing conflict in global teams isn't easy. Okay, especially if we are under virtual teams. Conflict can interfere with how information is used by the team. However, according to some researches, in a collectivistic culture, a collaborative conflict management can be the most effective. Now, let's talk about the manager's role. Despite the challenges associated with managing global teams, managers can provide the group with an environment in which efficiency and effectiveness are enhanced. How? First, because communication skills are vital, managers should focus on developing those skills. The managers must consider cultural differences when deciding what type of global team to use. For example, self-managed teams have not fared well in Mexico because their culture has low tolerance of ambiguity and uncertainty and employs strong respect for hierarchical authority. Okay. Finally, it's vital that managers must be sensitive to the unique differences of each member of the global team. But it's also important that team members must be sensitive to each other. Okay. So a team will not work just because the manager is very good. Okay. Each members of a team must be sensitive to each other to be successful. Okay. To make the team effective. Okay, now let's talk about building teams. Okay, have you participated in any team building exercises? Of course, you did. Okay, I mean, it can be in your company or in your organization or in your school. These are very common to illustrate and develop specific aspects or skills of being a team, right? Okay, maybe, okay. So, when you do team building exercises, it can help you know more about each member of the team. Okay? Or maybe you've been a part of a trust building exercises. Okay? So like you fall back and the team members will try to catch you, or an exercise in which your team had to figure how to get all the members across a river or a rock wall. Those exercises help the team members to bond or connect and learn to rely on one another. One of the important tasks managers have is building effective teams. Okay? People don't automatically know how to be a part of a team or to be an effective team member. It's the reason why we have to do team building or trust building activities between our workmates, right? You have to learn about the skill and keep practicing and reinforcing it. In building team skills, managers must view their role as more of being a coach and developing team members in order to create more committed, collaborative, and inclusive teams. Okay? Not everyone is a team player. Okay? For if the team building aren't working, maybe it's best to put those people in positions where their work is done individually. Okay? So teams are not for everybody. If you think that person cannot work with teams, you can assign a work for that person that can be done by himself. Okay? Now, let's try to understand social networks. Okay? What actually happens within groups? How do group members relate to each other? And how does work get done? So here, managers need to understand the social networks and social relationships of work groups. Why? Because a group's informal social relationships can help or hinder its effectiveness. Okay? For example, Research on social networks has shown that when people need help in getting a job done, they choose a friendly colleague or over someone who they think is more capable. Okay. Another example is that uh, team studies show that teams with high level of interpersonal connectedness actually attained higher their goals better than those who were committed to staying together. So it's very important to connect, okay? Organizations are recognizing the practical benefits of knowing the social networks within teams. Okay, so maybe, okay, as a manager, we can study the social networks of our teams. We can group them according to their league. Okay, so they can have better output. Let me end this report with a quote from Natalie Portman. Social networking is playing a huge role in creating awareness and mobilizing support for all kinds of common interests. What a better way to use this remarkable tool than to change the world. Okay, so now that we're exposed to different social networks or social studies among teams, okay, let's as a manager, okay, as a team member, let's use it to change the world. Okay? So now that we know how to approach or how to understand the social networks, let's use it for the better. Let's use it to be more productive. Let's use it to achieve our goals. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of my report.